Have you ever felt like you were the only one standing for what you believe in, surrounded by people who think you're crazy? Imagine not just a few people, but an entire nation against you. That's exactly where the prophet Elijah found himself. Today, we read diving into one of the most epic showdowns in history, Elijah versus the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel. This isn't just an old story, it's a high-stakes drama about faith, power, and the nature of God himself. So, let's set the stage. The kingdom of Israel was in a terrible state. The king, Ahab, and his notorious wife, Jezebel, had led the people away from worshiping the one true God and into the worship of a pagan deity named Baal. Baal was the god of rain and fertility, and his followers believed he controlled the weather and the harvest. To enforce this new state religion, Jezebel had systematically hunted down and eliminated the prophets of God. It was a dark and desperate time for anyone who remained faithful. In the midst of this spiritual drought, God sent a man of rugged faith, the prophet Elijah. To get the king's attention, Elijah declared a physical drought. He proclaimed that there would be no dew or rain in the land except by his word. And just like that, the skies dried up. For 3.5 long years, not a single drop of rain fell. The rivers evaporated, the crops withered, and a severe famine gripped the land. The people were suffering, and they were desperate. They prayed to Baal, the supposed god of rain, but their prayers went unanswered. The silence from their God was deafening. After 3.5 years, God told Elijah it was time for a confrontation. He instructed him to go and present himself to King Ahab. When Ahab saw Elijah, he greeted him with fury, calling him the troubler of Israel. But Elijah didn't flinch. He threw the accusation right back at the king, saying, "I have not troubled Israel, but you and your father's house have, because you have abandoned the commandments of the Lord and have followed the Baals." Elijah then laid down a challenge, a public test to prove once and for all who the true God was. He told Ahab to gather all the people of Israel at Mount Carmel, and not just the people, but also the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who were supported by Queen Jezebel herself. This was going to be a public spectacle, a divine contest with the highest stakes imaginable. So, everyone assembled on Mount Carmel. Picture the scene, a vast crowd of anxious Israelites, the smug and confident prophets of Baal in their fancy robes, and standing all alone on the other side, the solitary figure of Elijah. He addressed the crowd with a powerful question: how long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal is God, follow him. The Bible tells us the people said nothing. They were paralyzed by indecision, caught between their traditions and the state-enforced religion. Elijah then proposed the terms of the contest. He said, "Let's take to bulls. The prophets of Baal can choose one for themselves, cut it into pieces, and lay it on a wood altar, but they are not allowed to set fire to it. I will do the same with the other bull. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord, the God who answers by fire. He is God." The people agreed. This was a fair and dramatic test, since Baal was often associated with lightning and fire from the sky. His prophets must have felt pretty confident. The prophets of Baal went first. They prepared their bull and began their ritual. From morning until noon, they cried out, "O Baal, answer us." They danced and leapt around the altar they had made. But there was no voice. No one answered. The sky remained clear and silent. As midday approached, Elijah couldn't resist. He began to taunt them. "Shout louder," he said. "Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened." His sarcasm must have stung. Spurred on by his mockery, the prophets of Baal became even more frantic. They shouted louder and, in their desperation, they began to cut themselves with swords and spears, as was their ritual, until blood flowed from their bodies. They continued this frenzied display all afternoon. But still, nothing happened. No response, no sign, no fire. Their God was silent, their power was a sham. As evening approached, It was Elijah's turn. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. First, Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes of Israel, and he used them to repair the altar of the Lord, which had been torn down. This act itself was symbolic, a call for the nation to return to its foundations and be reunited in their worship of the one true God. Then, he did something completely counterintuitive. He dug a trench around the altar, and he instructed the people, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood." They did it, he said. "Do it again." They did it a second time. "Do it a third time," he commanded. They poured water on the altar 3 times until the sacrifice was soaked, the wood was dripping, and the trench around the altar was completely filled with water. Think about how crazy this must have looked. He was about to ask for fire from heaven, yet he was drenching everything in water. Humanly speaking, he was making it impossible for the sacrifice to burn. He was removing any doubt that if a fire did start, it could only be a miracle from God. There would be no trickery, no hidden flames. Everyone would know it was a divine act, with everything prepared, the water glistening on the altar under the setting sun. Elijah stepped forward. He didn't shout or dance or work himself into a frenzy. He simply prayed a calm, clear, and powerful prayer. He said, "Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again." His prayer was direct and to the point. It wasn't about him. It was about God's glory and the restoration of his people. And the moment he finished praying, the Bible says the fire of the Lord fell from heaven. It didn't just light the wood, it consumed everything. It burned up the drenched sacrifice, the waterlogged wood, the stones of the altar itself, and even the dust around it. And then it licked up all the water that was in the trench. A supernatural fire, a divine inferno, obliterated everything on the altar. The reaction of the people was immediate and overwhelming. When they saw this incredible display of power, they fell prostrate on the ground and cried out in unison, "The Lord, He is God! The Lord, He is God!" In that single moment, their wavering ended. The contest was over. The true God had revealed Himself in the most undeniable way possible. The story doesn't end there. Following this victory, Elijah commanded the people to seize the prophets of Baal. They were taken down to the Kishon Valley and dealt with, removing the corrupting influence from the land. Then Elijah went back up the mountain to pray for rain. And he prayed. A tiny cloud, the size of a man's hand, appeared over the sea. Soon, the sky grew black with clouds, the wind picked up, and a heavy rain began to fall, ending the long and painful drought. The story of Mount Carmel, a powerful reminder that our God is a living God who hears and answers. It challenges us today, just as Elijah challenged the Israelites. Are we wavering between 2 opinions? Are we trying to serve God while also holding onto the idols of our time, whether it's money, success, popularity, or anything else we put before Him? This story calls us to make a choice, to put our full trust in the one true God who has the power to send the fire and the rain. Thanks so much for watching. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into these incredible accounts. Let me know in the comments what stood out to you the most about Elijah's faith. See you in the next video.